but it's becoming increasingly obvious. I can deny it no longer. I am small.
It takes two to make a thing go right.
Just as Ant-Man acted as a more lighthearted breather to refresh us after the very consequential Avengers 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp is the chaser to the downer ending of Avengers Infinity War, showing us that just because things got dark doesn't mean the whole universe has gone gritty now or anything like that. And in many ways, it's better than the first Ant-Man movie. However, I can't help but like the first one more. Before I get into why, we're going to synopsize the plot so much. After helping Captain America protect a guy framed for bombing the UN in Captain America Civil War, Scott Lang is placed on house arrest. No longer Ant-Man, both because of his sentence and because his former mentor Dr. Hank Pym and Pym's daughter Scott's love interest Hope Van Dyne are furious with him over what he did in Civil War, Scott is trying to make the most of his situation by spending more time with his daughter Cassie and helping his fellow former burglars start a security company. With only days to go before he is a free man, Scott gets a vision in which he is Hank's wife Janet, thought to be lost in the quantum realm, that place Ant-Man went in the first movie. He calls Hank to tell him about it, and Hope and Hank kidnap him, letting him be the Ant-Man again so they can decode the mystery of Scott's vision and save Janet. But a new villain stands in their way. Scott's character is continuing his struggles from the first movie. All he wants to do is be a good dad, but every decision he makes seems to end up being the wrong one. His actions are completely innocent, yet they always end up endangering his loved ones or hindering their goals. And of course, he's still Paul Rudd, so he's also very funny. A lot of the funny Marvel heroes are funny in one specific way. Chris Pratt is a pop culture obsessed immature man boy, Tony Stark is a fast-talking quick-witted jerk, Spider-Man is a kid in over his head, you get the idea. Ant-Man and the Wasp takes pretty good advantage of Paul Rudd's skills as a comic actor, though. It's funny to see him be a doofus who doesn't understand the techno-babble, it's funny to see him stumble through a conversation, and it's funny to see him be embarrassed when his suit messes up. Ant-Man is still not one of the best protagonists in these movies, but this was an improvement. Here he wears a malfunctioning suit. While this does have the unfortunate effect of sidelining Scott in many action scenes so that the Wasp has something to do, I think it was a good choice. Instead of solving every problem by either growing or shrinking to the right size, he's now set at a size and it causes problems that he has to figure out how to handle without changing. The movie never has him accidentally change size in a way convenient to him, it always makes things harder. Our other title hero is Hope, who has taken her mother's mantle as the Wasp. Like Ant-Man, she can shrink, only when she does, her costume grows wings that allow her to fly. She can also shoot energy blasts from her hands. For all the different ways Marvel heroes blast stuff out of their hands, I appreciate making sure that they all look and sound distinct, since they are all powered by different technology or superpower sources. I can't fathom at all why they didn't let her control wasps, though. I don't care if she can't do it in the comics, she should, it just makes sense. Anyway, she's a more skilled fighter than Scott, and her fight scenes are terrific. Yes, her individual strikes don't look like they'd actually be painful, but she never takes down two guys in quite the same way. However, as cool as Wasp is, I didn't really get any more invested in her here than I already was. It's nice to see her getting along with her dad, but her sadness over her mother never really translated to me. I'm not sure why, I think maybe it's because we only get a couple of flashback scenes to really get to know her mom. Hank Pym's the same guy from the first movie, kind of a jerk, but in an understandable way since he has to put up with a doofus like Scott. I was very happy to see him shrink in this movie outside of a flashback. Michelle Pfeiffer plays the original Wasp, Janet Van Dyne, who we learn is actually a tough-as-nails survivalist who we only thought was dead, but who has been surviving in a world right underneath our nose this whole time. You know, like the mom in Aquaman. How weird is that? I know it has to be a coincidence because of how close they came out to each other, but it's weird that in 2018, two superhero movies feature mothers of superheroes being lost before turning up as hardcore wildland wanderers. Wasp's bogus plot convenience powers really bugged me, but Michelle Pfeiffer does a very good job with her limited screen time, and I love the obvious symbolism of an early movie superhero playing the mother of a modern movie superhero. Our villain is Ghost, played by Hannah John Kamen. I love this villain. I'm not saying she's as good as Loki, Vulture, Killmonger, or Thanos or anything, but she really appeals to me. Her costume is my absolute favorite in the entire MCU. Her powers of intangibility are realized with an interesting special effect and throw a new variable into action scenes against the differently powered heroes. She's sympathetic, well-acted, and intimidating threat, and participates in several good action scenes. I especially like that the movie implies she will return as a possibly redeemed hero, since her origin and motivation makes it seem like Punisher and Microchip were the same character and they got Shadowcat's powers. The supporting cast is pretty good here. They let Michael Pena do another storytelling bit, but only one so it doesn't get tiring. His character Louise and the other ex-cons Kurt and Dave get to help out a little more directly. Scott's ex-wife and her new husband are funny, while Cassie does a little bit more acting this time and pulls it off. And Lawrence Fishburne plays Goliath, who unfortunately doesn't get to transform in this movie, but I really hope he gets to grow in the next one. I'd like to highlight two members of the supporting cast in particular. The first is Walton Goggins as Sonny Birch, a secondary villain who mostly exists to keep the heroes on the run when we don't know where Ghost is. Goggins normally plays scumbags, but his skill for comedy is underrated, and here he's a comedic scumbag. Marvel likes to turn minor movie cliches on their head for jokes a lot, but it works best when they do it with cliches you don't even notice are cliches until they mess with it. While this is going to vary from person to person, I couldn't stop laughing when Goggins walked in the room in this movie and gave a haunting fact about washing cars. In any other movie, they'd have the villain give a random fact about, like, how ruthless a certain wild animal is, or have them quote some dictator to show how evil they are or something. I love that this B-villain is just trying to sound cool in the same way, but all he has to talk about is car washes. And second, Randall Park as Agent Jimmy Woo. Woo is an FBI agent who Scott has to worry might find out he left his house, violating his sentence. That's a functionally important but not critical role, right? So why highlight Randall Park? Well, that's simply because he is one of the funniest actors alive. I freaking love this guy in everything. So why don't I like this as much as the first movie? It swaps out borrowing elements from heist movies for being completely a chase movie. It has a few good characters and some good action, especially that awesome final car chase, and we even get lots more fun with size changing in the quantum realm than ever before. So what's wrong with it? Well, nothing. I can't really point to anything that this movie didn't do better than the first one, but whatever the reason is, it just didn't grab me. I just never cared about rescuing Janet and saving Ghost's life and Scott getting to be a free man as much as I did about Scott in the first movie turning his burglary skills into a superheroic act. Sorry to say it, but sometimes movies just don't click with you, and this one didn't with me. I still think it's better than Iron Man 2, Thor 2, and The Incredible Hulk, but I would probably have to place it below Doctor Strange and Thor Ragnarok. I'd like to remind everyone that this is just out of the MCU movies, all of which I enjoy other than Iron Man 2, which I'm just meh on. Still, if they announced one more Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, I'll be very excited for it. These movies are the most kid and family friendly in the franchise, and they still pack in tons of imagination with the powers and action alongside all the comedy and heartfeltedness, I guess you could call it. Not necessary for an MCU rewatch, but if you throw it in there, you won't regret it.
Meh.
But the TV gave me the impression that...
We said meh. M-E-H. Meh.
This movie's only credit scene shows Hank, Janet, and Hope sending Scott into the quantum realm to gather energy in batteries or containers or something. While Scott is inside, the three others are turned to dust, murdered by Thanos' snap from Avengers Infinity War. While Scott has gotten out of the quantum realm on his own before, Wasp warning him about time vortexes implies that time travel may somehow be involved in the plot of Avengers Endgame. Others have theorized that this may be why the Avengers have all changed appearances. Thor has short hair, a new weapon, and only part of his cape. Black Widow's hair always changes style and now color, and Hawkeye has a really stupid hairdo. It would be very easy for audiences to tell apart these characters if they met their past selves. I can't wait to see whether that's actually what happens.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.